so that you will not fail, so that you will not quit, so that you will not turn away. If only Peter, James and John and all the other disciples had listened to this advice to watch and pray, maybe Peter would not have denied Jesus 3 times. Quite possible, di ba? If only you had taken somebody's advice, if only you had been moved by the words in the Bible to watch and pray, maybe you would not be in the mess you are today. Maybe the evil enemy would not have his way with you if only you know the importance of watching and praying. Jesus knew the prevalent evil system of the world. And even as the day comes closer to his coming, and even as time goes by and we move into the end times and the times of tribulation, he knows that the evil one will be even more persistent to take as many as possible with him into his kingdom of darkness and destruction. I don't know about you, but as I look in the world today, it grieves me. When I was a young boy, there were things that were detestable, but today they are acceptable practices in society. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? When I was a young boy and we went to the movies, you would never find anybody blaspheming God. You would not find someone who speaks profanities in a movie. And if they did, people would get up and walk out. But today, even Christians, as they go to movies and profanities, and even people would blaspheme the name of our God, nobody even blinks an eye. It's an acceptable part of society today. People have distorted what family is all about. A man and man could get married and have a family. A woman and a woman could get married and have a family and have children, and they call that family. There is no respect anymore for the sacredness of marriage. But men and women exchange partners like they exchange clothes. And immorality is an accepted part of culture today, of society. Nudity on billboards, pornography all over the place in magazines, sold and accepted. And people say it's art. It's modeling. It's accepted. Are you with me here, church? Do you see what's happening in the world today? That even we as Christians seem to be comfortable with the evil advance of an enemy. That's why Jesus always tells us, watch, because we need to know what to pray for. If you're not watching, you would not know what the enemy is doing and what you need to pray about. Are you with me here? We are not watching, so we are not concerned. Enemy has given us many distractions to focus on, so we are not praying. And when we do pray, we are not praying for the things that we really should be praying about, things that God is concerned about. People are going to hell. People are struggling in sin, in bondage, in darkness, in immorality. The enemy holds them in chains, in darkness. They are destined for eternal damnation. And if that doesn't bother you, then something is wrong with us. In a materialistic world, even our prayers are mostly flooded with material things. But Jesus tells them specifically, this is why you should pray and not give up. Because you live in an evil world with an enemy that is constantly seeking to advance evil. He said in John 10:10, the thief comes to kill, to steal, destroy. He said that the thief is like a roaring lion. In Peter, he said, seeking to someone to devour. Are you with me here? Do you understand the nature of this enemy, this adversary out there? Do you know that probably the devil goes to church more than you and I? Seeking to distract. Even says in the Bible somewhere about the parable of the sower, that the seed was sown and the enemy came and stole it. That you walk out from here and the moment you leave, the enemy has already stolen the very word that God sought to plant in your heart. Confusion. The world is not short of religion today. False prophets, false teachers, philosophical religions. Why is the devil flooding the church, flooding the world with religion? The more the religion, the harder it becomes to choose the right one. Some people say, well, all religion is good. So what's wrong with it? That's why Jesus said in the last days, the world will not have a shortage of false prophets. The injustice of false religion, seeking to lead people astray and to their eternal destruction. Well, religion may give you some blessings in this world. But the big question is, what about eternity? The prevalent evil system of the world. Sometimes I hear stories of friends and their families, children whom they caringly, lovingly brought up in the world. Maybe you know one. Children whom they nurtured. Children whom they spent sleepless nights with. Children whom they invested their whole life in their education. Loving them, nurturing them, caring for them, crying with them. Only to find later on living an immoral life. Trapped in bondage to vices, drugs, alcohol, immorality. Without the fear of God and the love for the world. Why would we bring up a child and invest our lives into this child only to see him go to the devil? And the parents so busy in the world trying to earn a living and put food on the table and give them all the material gadgets they need, and therefore have no time for God or to pray or make their place, their house, a house of prayer. And they wonder, why are my kids in darkness? Why is my husband going astray? Why are our lives like this? Do you think we need to hear this, church? I know I may not get many amens this morning. We need to pray and not give up. Because there is a prevalent evil system of the world that is hard at work to entrap as many as possible, including you and I. Even great men of God being so busy in the ministry, so busy with the very things that God had called them into, since they have no time to stand in the counsel of God, since they don't have time to be in His presence in prayer on their knees, have failed and fallen. I guess as I preach to you, I preached to myself this morning on the importance of a deep life of prayer in the presence of God. Secondly, Jesus talks about the need to persevere in prayer. And there was a widow, he says, in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary, that we don't give up on our privilege to pray. God has given you and I a great privilege to enter into His presence. Do you know, my friend, that God hears your prayer because you are His child, and when you cry out to Him, God hears you? Do you believe that? And the reason you do pray is because you know, as First John says, that whatever we know, whatever we come to Him and ask in His name, He hears us when we ask according to His will. But there are times that we give up in our perseverance in prayer. Because the evil system of this world can often overwhelm you and I. It's like you face Goliath, and he's such a great big enemy with great numbers on his side. He seems to have all the resources with him. And we say, what can little old me do about all this trouble? And we just resign ourselves to do nothing. And then sometimes, not only do we get overwhelmed by it, but we get discouraged by it. Discouraged people sometimes, instead of looking at the real enemy and realizing that this is the work of the enemy, they begin to blame and be disgruntled with God. Why is God allowing this? Why is God allowing this to happen in my life? And the one thing that the enemy wants you to do is just that. To turn to God in bitterness. Rather, God says, if you exercise your faith in Him, He will move in power in the situation. Do you believe that, church? So instead of hanging up your gloves, take a stand. Keep fighting. Keep persevering in prayer on your knees, because the battle belongs to God. Sometimes, not only do we get overwhelmed, not only do we get discouraged and blame God, sometimes we say, hey, everybody is like this. The whole world is like this. The whole world is unfair. The whole world is unjust. The whole world is unrighteous. Let's just become like the world. If you can't beat them, join them. Isn't that what the philosophy says? But Jesus does not give us any of these excuses. He says the trouble is coming, and the only way you can overcome it is if you persevere and in prayer and you don't give up. Victory is assured as we pray.